Greetings everyone. So today we will be working on the graded lab. It is due 21st, meaning Tuesday, and it is a Pythonic arithmetic parser in the C language, which you've been just studying, but you will just learn about the Python, of course, and maybe some of you already know Python. So this is your goal for today. Again, so let me explain how this works. So I'll go to the class. So your goal is to write a program in C that evaluates arithmetic expressions, right? So using the standard Python rules, right? And so your goal is to read an input file. That's at least up to 8 or 9 grade. If you want 10, you also need to read a directory. You need to parse and evaluate the expression. So 2 plus 2, you should be returning 4, right? So also you need to return, if there's an error, you need to return the error location, right? And so you need to also write the output file, meaning like say you have an answer 4, you would write it in a specific file. So let's look at the syntax for this, maybe a little bigger, right? So your program should be called calc-c, right? So it compiles, it will be called calc, right? And it will have some options, right? Hopefully it supports directory, right? It's not necessary for a passing grade like 7. I think up to grade 7 you can get it with just a file, but it would be good if it is able to parse directory of different files, right? And also support the output directory, right? So also obviously it should take also input text, right? So input text would be if it's just a single file, right? So if D is provided, you process all the text files in the directory, right? No subfolders needed. Output, right? If there's no output, you create this type of output folder, right? Your base, right? Meaning input, your username, and your student ID, like labs, valdis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So if output directory is provided, right, you should, and it's not doesn't exist, you create it. Okay, so output file, right? So for each, if there's like input text, you would call this input, your name, last name, and student ID text, for example, right? So it's either result, right? The file contains the result like 4, or on the error position, right? So I'm going to give you only ASCII, so no fancy, Latvian or Spanish characters or Japanese, no, nothing like that. Just the regular English letters and, and of course numbers, obviously, right? Minimum grade up to grade 6, you only have a single line file, so up to 100 characters, right? For higher grades, right, there will be a float. You'll need to support a floating point parsing, right? So some features. So if you want to get this absolute minimum, you need to only parse plus or minus. I mean, this is a ridiculously easy task, right? So plus or minus, right, and get an answer somehow, right? For grade 5, you need to provide specific error position, right? Maybe 57, right? If you have something missing, like 2 pluses, 2 minuses, again, it's pretty easy still, right? So 6, you add multiplication and add floats, right? Support floats is 15 digits after the comma, after the dot, right? But still 100 character support, only 100 single line characters. So up to 6, I think, is still very easy, right? 7, it gets a little bit harder, but still doable. 10,000 characters, so multiple lines, meaning 5 lines, 10 lines, 50 lines, maybe 1,000 lines, maybe, right? So, and division, right? So, and also division by 0 error could be possible, right? So that's a little bit harder. For 8, you add parenthesis support, right? You still need the error. If you have a matching parenthesis, you need to report where the error occurs, right? So, for 9 comments, you add the Python has a comment stuff with the what do you call dash, not dash, but hash, right? So Pythonic line comments, right? And support directory support for grade 9. Also for grade 9, also support output, right? So once you get that done, then it's actually relatively easy, right? You need support for what? Python power operator, right? And also you need to basically, it should be unlimited file support, meaning any input size, I don't know. It's not going to be more than 1 megabyte, but theoretically, it should just be able to process any type of file, any size file, not only that 10,000, right? So I think if you get 9, you'll get 10. If you get 7, you'll probably, I think the hardest one is probably about from 8 8, I think, is the hardest jump, in my opinion, right? Up to 7 is relatively straightforward, right? 8, 9, right? 10, those are a little bit more challenging. Okay, so, but of course, there's lots of hints, right, how to do this. There are lots of hints, so it should not be that hard these days. Maybe 5, 10 years ago, it would be harder, right? But there's plenty of help, right? There's some lots of examples of errors. Another thing, of course, is that all of this you will have to show a working program to me within the next 4 weeks. Meaning, it doesn't have to be today. It could be 27th, could be 3rd, could be 10th of November. So 4 weeks to show it to me. Also, to get maximum grade, you need to submit by 21st, right? If you submit it later, if you check the grading, right, you will get a slight deadline up 2 weeks late, right, with minus 2 points of grade, right? So if you have a perfect program, but it's 2 weeks late, you'll only get 8. Okay, so it's a relatively challenging task for maximum grade, but I think 6 or 7, grade 7 is relatively easy, all right? So, best wishes. If you have not done this yet before, it should be also a good introduction to Python, right? So, and also a good test. So, best wishes, and I'll see you in the class.